start recording.
I have the book. I'm like good at, like I just got the book like recently. Yeah. I'm planning on reading it. Yeah. But I haven't read a book in a while. Yeah. I mean maybe this is an audiobook.
Yeah, I love audiobooks.
I would prefer an audiobook.
I like driving, so it's nice to like think
Oh
in the
yeah.
background.
That's sick.
Can you just say something and go through?
What do you
Hello.
Okay.
Mental health?
I'll just actually see it. Yeah, silent like the mental side. All right. Yeah.
I also kind of work it.
You guys ready?
Yes.
All right. We're gonna get started with another edition of our Mastery Monday. Today, very special guest and first time ever coaching here at VClub is Matt Osorio. So I met Matt in Calgary actually now, what, 4 months ago?
Yeah, about 4 months ago, yeah.
We were just playing at the tables. He recognized the VClub name or a little like car protector, and then he had seen some of our ads, and now it's kind of cool to see all come full circle. He's a clear tournament crusher, ton of final tables, won a ring as well. It was a delight playing with you, but yeah, excited for today's session. And
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
Of course, man.
Pleasure. Yeah, thank you all for coming. Very excited to actually kind of get into this coaching realm of poker. I've been a coach myself in the soccer world, which I'll get into very briefly. But yes, today we'll be focusing on navigating large field poker tournaments, which is very different than tournaments that have only 150 people. And we'll get into that right now. But first, let's get started here. Just kind of on a brief summary of who I am. I got a business degree in 2013 on a soccer scholarship, and I got a master's degree 2 years ago while I was coaching in university in the States. I was a semi-pro coach as well, and before that I worked in the office. So coaching has always been my passion, and I wanted to kind of transfer that over into the poker world, so excited to see how that goes. And a little summary and focus for today. We're going to be working on our mind shift. Really, what is a large tournament and how we're going to make our decisions throughout the tournament. Next is a reality check. Large poker tournaments, high variance. We're going to break down large tournaments in 3 stages. We're going to talk about the biggest tips and biggest mistakes that most players make, population tendencies. We're going to talk about some underrated stats that make a difference in large field tournaments. And then we're going to start asking the better questions that help us make better decisions when it comes to bluffing, calling, big decisions that either make or break you in large field tournaments. We all play chess here, or heard of playing chess, yeah? Chess and poker, kind of similar, but in a way it's not. Obviously in chess, you all get the same board, same pieces, perfect information. If you lose, it's your fault. But in poker, you can make the right decision over and over again, and it doesn't matter, you can lose over and over again. But the reason I bring up this is because in chess, you're at war against the other person. I look at poker like the same way. Poker and chess are similar because you're at war. Your chips are your army, and every hand you play is a battle. This is how I look at it when I play in these large field tournaments. And I'm going to keep this analogy going throughout this whole presentation, and you're going to see why. So reality check of large tournament field poker. How often do you think you get the best hand at a table, on average? A 9-handed table.
1 in 9.
Exactly, 1 in 9. 11.1% of the time. It's not that much, really. But when you look at it like that, it makes you think that your job as a poker player really is to start winning hands when you don't have the best hand. So variance in large tournament poker is high. I mean, extreme. There's a chance you may never even see the long run in large tournament fields. Your job in this tournament is not to win every level, but is actually to survive long enough for your edge to actually start to matter. And we're going to start breaking that down in the next few slides. Your job is to win small pots over and over again, and then win the maximum in big pots when your opponents make mistakes. As a poker player, you actually make the most money and your opponents make mistakes. And of course, when you don't have the best hand, you try and want to lose the minimum. So think of EV, which is expected value, as interest. Small edges compound over time if you don't blow up. And in large tournament fields, this is even more important. So what is actually a large field? Well, we're going to break it down here. Small fields and medium fields are usually under 500. Small fields are anything under 100. Here, you have tournaments that have, what, 30 people, 40 people, right? very different. You're playing against the same people over and over again. You're going to have to take certain spots. You're going to have to adjust your play. You can't really pick and choose. In large fields, over 500, very different. 3 stages of tournaments. The mistakes is where your money is really made. And in very large, massive fields, I'm talking 1,000 plus, WSOP tournament size fields, 3,000, 4,000 people, survival is everything. Variance is extreme, like I said, and then ego and impatience will bust you. So winning requires endurance and mental control in the largest fields. So if you're going to get anything from this presentation, remember this slide right here, because there's 3 tournaments within the actual tournament. We have the early stage. I call it the chaos phase. This is anything 60 big blinds and above. Everyone's playing wide ranges. You have people just throwing chips in, playing hands from any position without a care in the world, because mistakes, big mistakes don't necessarily always go punished. You may lose half your stack and still feel like you have a lot of chips. There's no pressure, you just started playing. People feel free. When your job really is to survive instead of trying to accumulate. Of course, you're trying to build a stack by taking advantage of other people's mistakes, but your job is to really take advantage of their mistakes. I'm going to break down each of these more in depth in the next few slides, but I just really wanted to show here what a large field is. There's 3 different phases. So we have the middle stage. It's my favorite part, actually. It's a separation phase. Between 30 big blinds to 60 big blinds, usually probably 6 hours into the tournament, you're going to get into this phase. Stack sizes start to matter. Pressure begins. You start to see the money bubble, which could still be very far away, but let's say you started with 1,000 people, you're down to 400 people. You're halfway there, but you still have a long way to go. And discipline starts to pay off, and the better players really start to pull away during this phase. And then we have the late stage, which I call the pressure phase, under 30 big blind average. This is where you're either on the bubble, in the money, and pay jumps start to dominate people's how they act. You really get to see who's here to survive and who's here to play. And of course, at this point, small mistakes can actually cause you to be eliminated. Rather, in the beginning, big mistakes may only make you lose a little bit of your chip stack. So every decision at this point really starts to matter. And the problem is, most people play the same strategy through all these phases, and that's why they never go far. So, surviving the chaos, the beginning levels. I'm just going to start with this quote here. Let the chaos happen. Just don't be a part of it. Learn to take advantage of it. During this phase of the tournament, your job is to play solid ranges. Play them aggressive pre-flop and post-flop and adapt based on the situation and who you're playing against. Of trying to avoid marginal spots out of position. You want to bet big with your value. You're not trying to bet big with bluffs at this stage of the tournament. Of course, I'm not saying you never bluff, but usually at this stage of the tournament, you want to value bet big and try and find bluffs for smaller bets. There's no ego battles at this point. Find better spots. You're in a huge tournament, 1,000-person tournament. You don't have to win this spot right here, right now. And again, you don't have to win every battle, even if you started. If you 3-bet and the flop didn't come your way, you C-bet, you continue betting, they called. It's okay to give up. Preserve your stack. Wait for better spots. The separation phase, which is the middle game. This is a stage where good decisions actually start to matter. This is where winners start to separate themselves, even though you're very far from the money. At this point, you could be halfway through the tournament. Let's say you start a tournament with 1,000 people, 500 people left, only 150 people are making the money. You're still very far away from the money, but you've been playing for 6-7 hours. People start to freeze up at this point, and it's your job to not worry about making the money at this point, because it's still very likely you're going to bust. So it doesn't matter to try and preserve your stack at this point. Your job is to try and build a stack. So at this point, every pot won and loss starts to matter. People start overplaying their hands. 40, 50 big blinds is a lot of chips, but at the same time, you don't want to be dumping in 50 big blinds with top pair. And a lot of the population tendency is to overplay their hands at this point of the tournament. 3-bets become much more powerful than in the beginning phase because 7 big blinds now starts to add up. Again, stack sizes and positions really starts to matter. You want to play in position a lot. And then controlling the size of the pot becomes important. And by that I mean maybe checking back top pair is a strategy. And I'm not trying to get into technical strategies here. This is general idea topics of how to survive large field tournaments. And again, if we were playing at a table with, let's say, 8 Vincents, this is not going to work, the strategies. I'm going to have to adjust and adapt and pick 3-bet bluffs, and I'm going to have to, pick spots and take my spots. But when you're playing large field tournaments, it's very unlikely you're going to have 8 really good players at your table. You're going to have players that are having fun, enjoying themselves, maybe having the first time playing a tournament. You don't have to take every spot. And again, the pressure phase, the late stage, this is where the money is really made. At this point, you've been playing for 10 hours throughout the day. Pressure starts to beat cards. Small bets become very powerful. You want to protect your stack at this point. At the same time, grow it. Small bets become very powerful. Like I said, you raise before the flop. Betting 2 big blinds, 1 big blind after the flop is enough to get enough information. They're usually going to fold. You don't have to be betting pot-sized bets at this point of the tournament. You want to win without showdown a lot. This is very key. I'm going to get into this in the next couple slides. Defending your big blind at this point of the tournament is also extremely important, because you're going to find at this stage of tournament, you're going to be having a lot of cutoff and button versus big blind situations. Sometimes you're raising from the cutoff versus the big blind, or you're in the big blind versus the cutoff and button. So you need to learn how to play those 2 positions very well, because at this point, this is where the money's made. And like I said, winning 5 big blinds at a time, when the average stack is only 30 big blinds, starts to really add up. For example, imagine you play for 10 hours. Time starts to get distorted. People are playing and they're winning chips, winning big pots, but they don't realize the big hands are spread out over 10 hours. And then all of a sudden, you're playing the late stage and you only have 2 hours left in the day, with the most important time, and people are still playing the same way, waiting to get the big hands. At this point, you're trying to just win 5 big blinds at a time. Raise, take, raise, take. You're not trying to wait to get a big pot all the time. That's not how you build your chip stacks. Of course, you want to get lucky and double up, but at this stage in the tournament, you're actually just trying to win small pots as much as possible. And hand strength changes at this point in the tournament. 6-5 suited, early position goes way down, while big cards like, let's say, even King 10 in the cutoff goes really high up. And again, survival is more important than anything at this point in the tournament. You've already survived 80% of the field. The late stage isn't about playing more hands. It's about applying pressure correctly. The bubble. This could be a mixture of the middle phase and the late stage, depending on this tournament and depending on the structure. But just a quick little difference between each of the bubbles. Well, in small field bubbles, what you have here, they happen quick. They show up fast. High tension, few players left, and there's not usually much room to maneuver. You're going to have to sometimes your number one goal is just to cash, because that's your chip stacks you have. In large fields, well, they start 200 people before the actual money bubble. There's multiple pay jumps. You don't have to worry about it necessarily. Wide range of stacks. You can have people with 150 big blinds and 10 big blinds at this point. And there's massive opportunity to accumulate. So I'm going to go into bubble here a little bit more specifically. Going from 1,000 players to 300 feels like a big deal, right? Yet you still have another 100 players away before you even get to the pressure phase of the tournament. 100 players is a whole other tournament in itself. So really, even though the pressure is on for some people who are there to try and make the money, there's still a whole other tournament just to be won, and this is where players start to separate themselves in large field tournaments. So here's 4 of the most important bubble tips, I believe, for large field tournaments. At this point, you're playing the players, you're not worrying about the payouts. And I'm talking 100, 150 people away from the money, because that's when the bubble really starts in large field tournaments. I'm not talking about when there's 10 people away from the money in large field tournaments, because that's going to go relatively fast, because there's still so many tables running. Most opponents at this point have been playing 8, 9 hours of their day. They're trying to min cash. That should not be your worry. In large field tournaments, you don't make money by min cashing $800 for a $400 buy-in. You make money by making the final 3 tables, final 2 tables, final 1 tables, and this is where it starts. Medium stacks become your target. Small stacks are trying to double up at this point. Large stacks are dangerous. You need to, depends on your chip stack. I'm saying in general, if you have a good, decent stack, medium stacks become your target. Position becomes way more valuable than your cards. You can be raising the cutoff and button a lot if you have a big stack. Doesn't matter what your cards are. Late position allows you to put a lot of pressure without committing too much of your chips. So raising in late position is very important on the bubble for these large field tournaments. And again, you don't have to force things. Spots will come up. Small steals start to add up. You don't need to really take spots in this situation. Most players are not putting pressure on you unless they have it. Again, nice thing about big fields now in WSOP, you have an app that tells you who they are and you can Google them and see who they are. And that can help you adjust to who's at the table and adapt. But most players in large fields are not putting pressure on you if they don't have it. So, large field tips. Oh, and I forgot to say, and I apologize. If you guys have any questions throughout, just put your hand up. And yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Does this recommendation apply to online tournaments as well? Any differences?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, in large field online tournaments, it would definitely apply. If you're playing in the smaller field tournaments, online in general, I would say is more difficult than live poker. So I would say take this, and then you're going to have to adjust a little bit. But in large field online tournaments, yes, you can still use same general concepts.
Which, if any, of those like 3 phases would you say is maybe most applicable to a smaller format tournament like the ones we have here? Whether it's the chaos phase, the survival, or that later phase of putting on pressure?
So I would say they all would be applied. They're just all shorter time. So the chaos phase happens, but it may only last for 2-3 levels instead of lasting for 8 levels. The medium phase will happen, but it'll be short. And then all of a sudden it's just pressure phase for the whole rest of the tournament. So it's actually almost like the opposite. The pressure phase happens faster and lasts longer. Yeah. And please, if I keep talking, just put your hand up and I'll finish my thought and I'll get to you. So yeah, large field tips. Make fewer big mistakes. It's very easy to say, but that's the difference in large field tournaments is you just make fewer mistakes than your opponents, and in the long run, they make a difference. But in line with that, you want to give your opponents a chance to make a mistake. Does anyone have any idea what I mean by giving your opponent a chance to make a mistake? Well, I'll give you an example. You have a good hand, you raise, they call, you have top pair. You want to bet really big, right, to make money, but what does that make them do? It allows them to play perfectly. They're either going to call with a good hand or just fold the trash they have. If you bet really small, and let me be clear, this is not talking during the chaos phase, the beginning phases. You bet your big hands big. This is for medium, for the middle stage and the pressure phase when you want to start changing your bet sizes to allow players to make mistakes. But you don't want to allow your opponents to play perfectly by giving them easy decisions. 3 betting too big, betting too big. You just allow them to play perfectly. You want to avoid unnecessary variance. In large field tournaments, you're going to have spots come up over and over again because patience actually does pay off. This is very different than playing in a 30, 40 man tournament, or if you're playing in a tournament that's very high buy-in with really good players, you're going to have to take variance. There's no choice. But in large field tournaments, you can choose. Put yourself in good positions. Put yourself in good situations and believe in yourself to find a better spot. And again, apply pressure when it actually counts. Late night is when money is made. People get tired. They've been playing all day. This is where your time is actually to shine. Mentally, physically, and emotionally, how fit are you to take advantage at 12 a.m. when you're playing for the last 2 hours and all the money matters? This is where you really have a chance to make the final table, while players get tired and make more mistakes. So make sure you take care of yourself the night before, how you eat, how you sleep. Are you exercising? Because it really starts to pay off in the large field tournaments. It separates you when the money counts. And again, survival matters. I don't know if anyone's ever felt powerful with 10 big blinds, but 10 big blinds when the average stack is less than 30 is very strong. You're not dead. 2 doubles and all of a sudden you can be in the top 10 in chips. So don't get impatient. Take your spots. You might have 10 big blinds for 3 hours, and that's okay. Stealing a blind here, stealing a blind here, surviving. And then all of a sudden, that third level, after having 10 big blinds, you be chip leader because you were patient and you let the cards come to you. So again, don't get impatient with 10 big blinds in large fields when the average stack is less than 30. You're very much in the game. You're not trying to beat everyone today. You're trying to be alive when they beat themselves. This is what I believe is kind of the biggest leaks for the population. And again, this is not everyone. You're going to have to decide at the table which players fit into this mold and which players don't. But in general, based on my experience, this is what I believe is the biggest mistakes that most players made. They try and copy GTO with understanding that in large field tournaments, the perception of what the player thinks of you is more important than anything else. If they think you're an aggressive player, they're going to play you like you're an aggressive player. If they think you're a tight player, they're going to play you like you're a tight player. So you have to adjust to that. Trying to be balanced in large fields is not going to work. You're trying to be full exploitable, get the maximum and lose the minimum. And again, knowing what they think of you based on the hands you've shown down, based on their mannerisms when you show a hand, the way you bet, watch people's reactions. Start to see what they think of you because then that's where you can now bet a certain size when you play against them. Everything matters at the table. And their perception of you is one of the most important things on a large field. Again, pre-flop impatience, it really is a marathon. We're talking 2-3 days of poker in these large field tournaments. There's no need to rush. Don't get impatient. Trust your rangers. Trust opening up when you need to, and trust the 3 stages of tournaments. Pressure phase, middle phase is when you start to really go in there and battle for chips. And in mid to late tournament forcing, we forget that 20 to 30 big blinds at this stage is a lot of chips. I know we're used to playing cash games and having 100, 200 bigs, but 20 to 30 big blinds in the mid to late of the tournament is huge. One double up and you have a chance to really win the tournament. You don't need to get it all at once. Like I said, winning 5 big blinds here and 5 big blinds here is amazing. And again, one of my biggest leaks I think they do is that playing the bubble in late stages is the same as early levels. It's very different. Even if you have a big stack, doesn't mean you play the same way. That stack is very important. You want to protect it. And in these big fields, we underestimate the money, how much one mistake can really cost you. You just played a 2,000 person field, you're down to the final 150. It's amazing. You're so close yet so far. You don't want to throw it all away at this point, trying to prove a point or battle with someone that's 3-bet you 3 times. No, pick your spots. Believe that better spots are going to come up, and don't try and have an ego battle with them. It's okay if they win this spot here or there. You're there for the long run, and there's still a long way to go. 150 people after 2,000 people is a whole other tournament in itself. And just something to remember here, if you don't know why you're betting, you shouldn't be betting. But my question to you is, what are 3 reasons why you should be betting?
Value, bluffing.
Great. And semi-bluffing, right? But if you don't know which one of those you're doing, maybe you should check. Checking becomes a very strong, powerful tool late in the game. When it be middle stage and late stage, checking is a weapon, which we're going to get into next. Does anyone know what WTSD and WSD is?
One is win with showdown.
Yes, exactly. Win to showdown and win at showdown. These are 2, I think, very important stats when we're looking at playing large field tournaments. Just in general, poker actually. I think this is two very underrated stats. The way I will break it down is when to showdown, how often am I getting curious? When I showdown, how often am I right when I'm getting curious? And you don't have to always be 50% right necessarily, actually. But an issue I think a lot of players have is a lot of players go broke thinking that they have to win every hand. Like it's a final battle. No, it's not true. And you actually just want to win a lot of pots without showing your cards. A lot of good players don't show their cards unless they have it. They don't go to showdown usually unless they have it. Yes?
I've heard the concept. The goal is to get to showdown as cheap, or maybe I'm misinterpreting things you've said to me, Victor. But get to showdown as like cheap as possible, like with like a, oh, maybe that was like for like middling pairs?
Yeah, with marginal hands, you want to, well, in position, you want, that's why checking back and having, getting to showdown with marginal hands is
but
fine.
You're saying like you don't even want to get to showdown.
No.
Oh.
So I'm going to show you the next slide,
Okay.
necessarily what I mean, but I think I'm saying in this slide right here, these two stats are very important. So here's stats for me when I played a $300 tournament last month on GG. What stands out to you here in this sort of, I played 90, I tried doing it at the same time, but let's say 96, 94 hands, same tournament. What here stands out?
What is PFR and ATS?
Attempted steal is
Oh.
that one, which is raising late position, and PFR is raise first.
Well, your aggression stands out to me with the ATS.
Your VPIP is also.
This number right there.
Oh wow.
I played 35% of my 94 hands, which is, let's say what, 30, 33 hands or so, something like that. Out of the 33 hands, I've won 20 without showing my cards. I went to showdown only 3 times. I've lost 2 of them. That doesn't mean at this point, I've already tripled my stack or doubled my stack necessarily. I've won 20 pots without showdown. This is a very important skill for players to have in the beginning phase of tournaments. You don't necessarily want to show your cards all the time. So I wanted to show this because when you get into the mind of a poker player in large field tournaments, you don't always need to show your cards. The best players don't. So a high WTSD is over 25% and a low is under 17. Everything between there is pretty good for going to showdown. So if you're playing 30% of your hands, you're only going to showdown 20% of the time. On average, you should be. And winning a showdown, obviously, between 47 and 52% is really good. Anything above 55% means you're playing too tight. Anything below 45%, you're too loose. And remember, if your bluffs always work, you're not bluffing enough. Any questions on this kind of idea of going to showdown?
Explain that a little bit. I've heard of that before.
Which part?
Well, I've heard of this idea of, sometimes you're going to bluff into the nuts, and that's normal, right?
Well, yeah, you want to reduce the bluffs into the nuts, that's for sure.
What I've heard is like that's the idea, though. It's like there's no way to avoid that.
The truth is, you want to bluff a lot. You just don't want to bluff big, necessarily. You're trying to find a lot of good bluff spots. You want to bluff, you want to find bluffs for 7, 8, 15 big blinds. You're not necessarily looking for bluffs for 50, 100 big blinds. In a large field tournaments, players don't fold big hands. They fold small pots. They fold in small pots. They fold when the pot's only 15, 20 big blinds. They fold for that 10 big blind bet. They're not folding for a 100 big blind pot for a 50 big blind bet on the river. I've already invested so much, I'm in.
What I'm curious about is when you said if your bluffs are always working, you're not bluffing enough.
Exactly.
So what does that mean?
It's literally what it means. If you're bluffing, oh, I got it through here, I got it through here. I went 5 for 5 today. Well, maybe you should have gone, 12 for 16.
And how does that interact with people aren't folding?
Because you're not looking for spots to bluff in big pots.
Big pots?
You're looking to bluff in the smaller pots. Take down 5, 6 big blinds at a time.
And so my understanding that generally the strategy is like when you do see that resistance, that these are like obvious clues that this is
in general for large field tournaments, again, I just want to be very clear. This sort of ideas and what I've spoken about today is for large field tournaments playing against a population that plays a certain way. For playing against 8 Vincents, this is not going to work. You're going to have to take a lot more bluff spots. You're going to have to bet bigger. You're going to have to adjust and adapt your style and have way more bluffs. But against the population in large field tournaments, if they're giving you resistance most of the time, okay. So I just want to break down here, in general, questions to ask before calling and betting big. Just like I said, population is under bluffing and over folding in big WSOP $400 tournaments, let's say. What hands could they have that beat me? What bluffs realistically exist? And does the story actually make sense? Very simple 3 questions, and if the answers feel forced, just fold or check. You don't have to always be a hero. The truth is, in these big tournaments, you don't make it far by making brilliant plays and making hero calls and big bluffs. You make it far by discipline and control. And again, this is just a very simple, generalized way to ask questions. This isn't, a very deep strategy and you're playing against 50 really good players. This is population and how to beat them. So in general, as a poker player, your real focus is to win X big blinds per hour. In cash game, what's a good hourly X big blind?
5, 6.
Sure, 10 even, 10 is like really good, right? So imagine if you do that into tournaments, but the average stack is 30 big blinds. What if you were winning 4 or 5 big blinds per hour and the average stack was 30 big blinds? That would be amazing, right? So remember that when we are, playing levels and time has gone by and you're just keeping your stack going, winning blinds here, you're doing great. You don't have to always win big. You're not there to try and dominate the table and be the best player and prove you're the best and be chip leader every tournament. Your job is to survive in large fields, and then when the cards come your way and spots show up is when you really grow that stack. Because the truth is, everyone gets the same premiums in the long run, and winners play the rest of the cards better. And that's what separates you between a good player, a bad player, and a really good player, is how you play the rest of the cards. Anything else?
I'm wondering about like cooler spots. Like, like ace king versus aces.
The truth is,
How would you navigate that kind of?
truth is, they're going to come up just as often for everyone else. It's something you have to be okay with. It just happened. And the truth is, sometimes it's just your time to die in the tournament. It's just the best way to put it. You have to be okay with that. And you're going to be on the other end of the cooler sometimes too. And it's just, there's nothing you can do. Yeah.
That was a really great presentation, by the way. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed it. A couple weeks ago, I was playing in a Vegas tournament, and I got I surpassed we got through on the money bubble, and I was in a hand where I had around 23 big blinds, which was actually pretty much on par with everyone at the table. And then there was one smaller stack around 10 big blinds who small blind versus big blind, me big blind, and they with 10 big blinds shoved. And I had ace king off, and I called. And I'm wondering if you consider that I didn't win the flip, but I'm wondering if that is an example of not taking a high variance spot, when it's they had, I immediately losing over a third of my chips, it was pretty rough. So is that what you mean by high variance?
No, I would say that's such a really good spot that you have to
okay.
take every single time. But I understand the thought process of you're risking your stack with a non-made hand deep into a tournament. But you way you have to look at it is that out of all the hands that he's shoving, am I dominating enough hands with ace king?
Yeah.
He's shoving ace 5, ace 4, every ace. He's shoving every high king. So you're dominating enough hands. It wouldn't be a high variance spot.
Can you give it an example of a high variance spot?
Yeah, for sure. So let's say we're deep into tournament and you have pocket 10s in the small blind and cutoff opens and you have 25 big blinds. Okay, if I'm playing against some really good players, I'm gonna probably 3-bet or shove that spot. If I'm playing in a large field tournament where I think I have a very high edge, I'm just gonna call. Let's see what happens. Can I cooler him? Can I hit a set? Maybe he bets. Most players bet once and then they just check down because they don't want to give their stack up. Most players are not triple barrel bluffing, so maybe that's a spot where pocket tens you would just call instead of getting all your chips in with 25, 20 big blinds deep into a tournament.
Okay, thank you.
How does like bubbling, like when you get into the real money, how does that maybe influence some of the things we're talking about? Like ace king specifically is very interesting. Are these like marginal hands like you're bringing up, like tens, right?
Well, I would say ace king and tens are definitely not marginal hands. They're in the premium side of hands that you're gonna get. It just everything shifts in large field tournaments where there's just people making mistakes left and right. You don't need to take a spot where at best you're gonna have 50% of a flip. Now again, ace king in the big blind for small blind, it's not necessarily the same thing. That's a really good spot, and I would take that for probably 30 big blinds.
And you're playing a spot like that regardless of the money.
Yes, if I'm in the big
Yeah.
blind with ace king and someone shoves me in the small blind,
Yeah.
I'm
That's it. Okay.
calling down for sure. And it's because it's such a good spot. You may only be 50-50, but sometimes you can have 70% to 30% a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And that's just a spot you have to take.
Yeah, even though it's like your tournament life on the bubble, for example.
Yes,
it's like,
yes,
take
yes.
it. Okay.
Because people are giving you the opportunity. They're going to be shoving too high sometimes. They think ace deuce, I'm just going to try and win this with 20 big blinds, and they just give it to you, and you have ace king. That's a snap every day of the week.
Mhm.
And what was your question regarding the bubble? Sorry.
That was the question. Like, would you still make decisions like that, even on a situation where it's like your tournament life on
Well,
the
if
bubble?
you're like, it depends, like how close we're on the bubble. When I speak here on the bubble in large tournaments, the bubble kind of starts 200 people before even the money. So the bubble pressure, I guess let's say, registrations ended, people have been playing for 8 hours already. In their mind, they already text their family, I've been playing all day, I'm doing good. Oh, good luck, I hope you make the money. They're in their mind, they have to make the money now. There's still 3 hours to go before you even make the money. You see what I'm trying to say there? There's still a long way to go. There's still so much poker to be played. There's so much chips to be won. And they're already thinking about making the money. So that is where it separates. Now, if we're 50, 20 people away and you have a small chip stack, now your job number one is just to make the money. Because you only have 10 big blinds or 10 people away. You know, now your job is to make the money. But 100 people away, 150 people away, 200 people away, your job is not to make money yet. Your job is to try and get chips. If you bust, that's okay because you're going to bust a lot in poker tournaments. And you have to get used to that.
And so that would not influence the discussion we're having here around taking a flip, for example.
Again, I try and reduce in large field tournaments big flips for a lot of chips because I think I'm good enough to find better spots. But if I'm playing against good players and I know I have to take a spot, I'm going to have to take a spot. Is the best way I would describe it, is that you have to know who you're playing against and adapt to that specific situation. And if you're very close to the bubble, like literally 5, 10 people away from the bubble, okay, definitely take the lower variance spot if you want to. But if I have ace king, I'm probably going to try and get in because if I can win, if I can double my stack from 20 big blinds to 40, I have a chance to win the tournament in my mind.
Thank you.
I think to add on to that, I think generally what I've seen is like if you think you have an edge over your field, to what Matt is saying, you kind of want to avoid these higher variance spots because you're probably just going to be able to steal a bunch of EV and a bunch of small pots and not even have to risk your stack. I think it's like a similar concept. We were just at VCamp with Chris Brewer, so one of the best tournament crushers in the world, and he talks about like very specifically in like the main event, he like literally never it's slightly different concept, but he like never 3-bets anyone pre-flop because the field in general is just making so many mistakes post-flop. He wants to lengthen like the hand. So like when you jam pre-flop for like 4-bet or 5-bet jam with like ace king, and you know you have enough equity generally speaking to get all the money in, versus like trying to play an uncomfortable maybe 3-bet or 4-bet spot with like ace king out of position or in position. Like there are situations where you want to take that if you just like are really unfamiliar with the post-flop spot against like a good player. Take that high variance spot. Maybe they call off with pocket tens and just try to run your 50-50. But against players that you think are going to be making a lot of mistakes post-flop, you can outmaneuver them. You actually have a big incentive to lengthen the hand, which is why, like Chris, he has like a 4% 3-bet range pre-flop in the main event specifically. He just tries to take every hand to post-flop, play in position, and people are just going to play their hand in a way where he just has like clairvoyance by the river. He knows exactly what they have because of the way that they played the hand. So it's something to think about depending on what sort of edge you think you have over the field you're playing in.
It's super interesting because it's like in cash there's an idea like that too, I think, where if there's a player that is providing a lot of value, or you're trying to get in there with that player, and so you might take spots like that that you wouldn't normally,
Yeah.
in order to get them there, because you know that you're going to make the most money if they're in there, regardless of this isn't a good decision normally.
Yeah, definitely. And just to follow up to Vincent's point is, what Chris Brewer is doing there, he's giving them a chance to make more mistakes, not allowing them to play perfectly. If you just 4-bet shove ace king, they're going to fold ace queen very easily. They're going to fold, you know, if you 3-bet ace king all the time, they're going to fold ace jack pre-flop. Sometimes you just call on the button with ace queen, ace king. They're raising ace jack, ace 7, ace 10. All of a sudden ace on the flop, they're willing to get all their chips in for 30, 40 big blinds that they would have folded pre-flop. So playing hands in a way to allow them to make mistakes is actually critical in large field tournaments because you make most of your money off of other players' mistakes. Of course, when you make the biggest hand and they have the second best hand, you get all the chips, but that happens on its own. Most of the money is made off other players' mistakes, and you have to give them a chance to make a mistake. So it's exactly the point you made.
Any other questions? All
Did
right.
you bring your ring?
No, I did not. I did not.
You don't play with it?
No, I see some people wearing it. I'm like, I don't know if I would do that. But
Cool. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thanks.
This is awesome.
thank you guys.
I like the quotes that you
Yeah.
sprinkled.
Thank you. My favorite one is